A warm hello to you all. Welcome back to my lecture series on mass transfer operations. This is second lecture in the series. In the first lecture, we have discussed introduction to mass transfer operations. We have understood what are mass transfer operations, what is the importance of mass transfer operations, how mass transfer operations are classified. Out of the four categories that we had listed in the previous lecture, we discussed the first one, and now in this particular lecture we will be discussing the remaining three categories. To start with, let us discuss mass transfer operations involving contact of two miscible phases. When you have two miscible phases, they will have tendency of mixing in each other. So in this case, it is very difficult to maintain concentration gradient without mixing those two phases. Therefore, due to this practical difficulty, these operations are rarely used. They are only used under some unusual conditions, some certain unusual circumstances. Now let us discuss few operations falling in this category. The first operation is thermal diffusion. In case of thermal diffusion, a concentration gradient is created within a single fluid phase. It could be a gas phase or it could be a liquid phase. A concentration gradient is created within a single fluid phase by imposing concentration gradient on that phase. So once there is concentration gradient, components within the phase, they will be diffusing from a place of high concentration to a place of low concentration, and in this way mass transfer will occur. Then another operation in this category is sweep diffusion, and in case of sweep diffusion, what is done? A condensable vapor like steam, for example, it is used to carry away one of the component from a gaseous mixture. So for that, what is done? The condensable vapor is swept through a mixture of gases, and as the condensable vapor is swept, it will carry away with it one of the component, and you will be able to separate that component from the gas mixture. So a condensable vapor is swept through a mixture of gases, and one of the components in the gas mixture will then be carried away by that particular condensable vapor. So this is what happens in sweep diffusion. Then the next operation in this category, it is called as atomolysis. In case of atomolysis, what is done? When you have a single phase and there are two different concentration zones, there are two different places where concentration is different. So such zones are separated by a screen. But the screen that is used, it is having relatively large openings. So what does this screen do? The screen controls the passage of components through its opening. So it will allow some components to pass through the openings, and it will restrict the movement of few components. So in this way, we will be able to separate components of a liquid solution or a gas mixture. Then the next operation in this category is centrifugation. And what is done in this operation? In this case, a gaseous mixture, a mixture of gases, is subjected to action of centrifugal force. When this is done, what will happen? Centrifugal force of different magnitudes will act on particles of different masses. The magnitude of the centrifugal force that will be acting on particles will depend on the masses of those particles, and particles having different masses will experience centrifugal force of different magnitudes. And due to this, what will happen? Heavy particles, they will be accumulated at the periphery of the centrifuge, and in this way they will be separated from the lighter particles. So these were a few unusual operations where there is contact of two immiscible phases, and since it is very difficult to maintain concentration gradient without mixing those two phases, they are rarely used, they are used in only unusual circumstances. Okay? Then next, the third category of mass transfer operations that we had listed were the membrane separation operations. So what are these operations? These operations involve two miscible phases separated by a membrane. Two miscible phases are separated by a membrane. Now the membrane will have certain functions in this operations. Let us understand what purposes are served by this membrane. The first thing is the membrane will act as a barrier between the two miscible phases. So once it acts as a barrier, it will prevent intermingling of the two miscible phases. So the other thing is it will prevent hydrodynamic flow of the two phases. Hydrodynamic flow will occur under the influence of pressure difference, and membrane will prevent any such hydrodynamic flow. Then the main function of membrane is to control flow of various components through it, and by controlling the flow of various components through it, we are able to separate components of either mixture of gases or liquid solutions. So it could be based on differences in molecular weights, it could be on the basis of difference in sizes. So in this way, separation is achieved in this type of operations. Let us discuss few of these operations. The first one is gaseous diffusion, or it is also called as gaseous effusion. Now what is done in this case? There are two gas phases, and these two gas phases are separated by a microporous membrane. So you have a microporous membrane, and on both the sides of the membrane there are gas phases. Okay? So two gas phases are separated by a microporous membrane. Now what will this membrane do? This membrane will allow components to pass through it based on their molecular weights. So components having different molecular weights will get transferred through the membrane differently, and this is the basis of separation. So separation occurs on the basis of difference in molecular weights of the components. So this is gaseous diffusion or effusion. Then the second operation is permeation. In case of permeation, the membrane is non-porous. The membrane is non-porous, and it will separate either two gas phases, or it will separate a liquid phase from a gas phase. Okay? So a non-porous membrane separating either two gas phases or one gas phase and one liquid phase. Okay? So what will happen? The components that are transferring through this membrane, what they will do? They will first dissolve in the membrane, and after dissolving in the membrane, they will diffuse through the membrane under the influence of concentration gradient, and they will come to the other side. Okay? So the action in case of permeation is the components that are transferring through membrane, that are diffusing through membrane, they will first dissolve in the membrane, and then they will diffuse through the membrane, and this will happen under the influence of concentration gradient. Okay? Then what is the basis of separation in this case? The basis of separation is difference in solubilities of different components. For example, if you have two components, one component will dissolve to a different extent and the other component will dissolve to a different extent. And due to difference in solubilities of those two components, the separation can be achieved. The components which are more soluble which can dissolve to a greater extent, they will easily dissolve in the membrane and then will diffuse through the membrane under the action of concentration gradient. Okay. Then the next mass transfer operation that we will be discussing is dialysis. Now what is this dialysis? In case of dialysis, a solution of crystalline substance containing some colloidal matter in it is separated from a pure liquid by a semi-permeable membrane. So you have a semi-permeable membrane. What is a semi-permeable membrane? Semi-permeable membrane will allow passage of only specific components through it. So a semi-permeable membrane separates a solution of crystalline substance with colloidal matter in it from a pure liquid. Okay. The semi-permeable membrane that we are talking about, it allows passage of only the crystalline substance and the liquid solvent. It will not allow passage of the colloidal matter. So in this way, this particular operation can be used to separate colloidal matter that may be present in a solution of crystalline solution. Okay, so the membrane is permeable to the crystalline substance and it is also permeable to the liquid solvent. So in this case, by using this operation, undesired colloidal matters, as I told you earlier, that may be present in a liquid solution, they can be removed. Another thing that can be done in this case is you can apply an electromotive force across the membrane. So if you apply an electromotive force across the membrane, what can happen? It can assist the movement of charged particles. If there are any charged particles within the solution, then this electromotive force can assist the movement of those charged particles. And when you are applying the electromotive force across the membrane, then that operation will be called as electrodialysis. Okay. Then the next operation that we will be discussing is osmosis. Now what is this osmosis? Again, in osmosis there is a semi-permeable membrane. I already told you what is a semi-permeable membrane. This semi-permeable membrane will be separating a solution from a pure solvent. So you have pure solvent on one side and you have solution on one side. The solution will contain the same solvent and solute dissolved in it. So solution is separated from a pure solvent and this membrane can allow passage of only solvent through it. Okay. So a solution is separated from a pure solvent by a semi-permeable membrane. Now the membrane allows passage of only the solvent through it, I already told you. Then during osmosis, what will happen? Under the influence of osmotic pressure, pure solvent will be diffusing from the solvent side to the solution side. So it will be diffusing through the semi-permeable membrane to the solution side under the influence of osmotic pressure. If you talk in terms of chemical potential of pure solvent on the solution side is less as compared to chemical potential on the pure solvent side. So it will be diffusing from high chemical potential side to low chemical potential side. Now with this kind of mechanism, osmosis as such cannot be used as a separation operation. Now what is done? In order to oppose the osmotic pressure, or in order to overcome the osmotic pressure, what can be done? We can impose a opposing pressure on solution side. In osmosis, the path of solvent is from solvent side to solution side. Now, and the driving force is osmotic pressure. The osmotic pressure is causing this flow. Now, if you apply pressure to overcome the osmotic pressure on solution side, what can happen? The solvent from the solution will then diffuse will then diffuse through the semi-permeable membrane to solvent side. So what is achieved in this case? You are able to separate solvent and solute. You are able to separate solvent from the solute that is present in solution. So as I said, osmosis as such is not a separation operation. So when pressure is applied on the solution side, to overcome the osmotic pressure, the diffusion of the solvent can be reversed, and now the solvent will be diffusing from solution side to the solvent side. And since the process is reverse to what is happening during osmosis, it is called as reverse osmosis. And reverse osmosis plays a vital role in desalination of seawater for the purpose of getting pure drinking water. So this is all about osmosis. That ends our discussion, a brief discussion on membrane separation operation. The last thing that we will be discussing in this particular session is how membrane separation operations are classified as how mass transfer operations are classified as direct mass transfer operations and indirect mass transfer operations. Let us talk about direct mass transfer operations. Now, direct mass transfer operations, in direct mass transfer operations, the second phase is created out of the first phase by application of heat or removal of heat. By application of heat or removal of heat. So examples of direct mass transfer operations are, you have distillation, you have crystallization. In distillation we have learned that a vapor phase is created out of the liquid phase. In crystallization, even though we have not discussed crystallization in this particular session, but in crystallization a solid phase is created out of liquid phase, and these are the examples of direct mass transfer operations. Then indirect operations. In indirect operations, the second phase is added from the outside. What are the examples of indirect mass transfer operations? You have gas absorption. In gas absorption, the gas mixture is contacted with liquid solvent. So gas mixture is coming from outside, as well as the liquid solvent is also coming from outside. Both the phases are added from outside. Okay. So these are indirect mass transfer operations. Gas absorption, then you have liquid extraction, leaching. These are the examples of indirect mass transfer operations. Then in case of direct mass transfer operations, the product that is obtained is almost pure and there is no further separation that is required. But this is not the case with indirect mass transfer operations. In indirect mass transfer operations, the product obtained is always present in a solution and you need to separate it. And the separation operation requires additional cost. And that makes indirect operations costlier than direct operations, and that is why direct operations are always preferred over the indirect operations. But there are cases where you can go for indirect operations. For example, when the final product is not required separately, if there is no need of separating the final product, then you can go for indirect mass transfer operations. Then you can go for indirect mass transfer operation. For example, when in the manufacture of hydrochloric acid, what is done, a gas containing hydrogen chloride is treated with water, and this hydrogen chloride then will be absorbed in water, and the reaction will take place, and there will be formation of hydrochloric acid solution. So hydrochloric acid solution will be it itself will be the product, and there is no need of separating it from the solution, and that is why in that case you can go for using indirect mass transfer operations. Okay, so with this we end our discussion on introduction to mass transfer operations. We have tried to understand what are mass transfer operations, how mass transfer operations are classified, and then under each category we have discussed few important mass transfer operations. And in the next lecture I'll be discussing molecular diffusion in fluids, molecular diffusion in gases and liquids. Thank you.